So today on Optimize Your Naʻau podcast, we have a special guest, Boomer Anderson, CEO of Smarter Not Harder, CEO of Health Optimization, Medicine and Practice, and just a leading expert in health optimization for us entrepreneurs. So stay tuned while we have conversations covering supplementation, all the way up to presents.
We're going to be talking about the importance of connection, especially in our health space, and how important it is to connect with each other, create a community, whether you are a medical practitioner or not. If health is of any importance to you, you should listen in to this beautiful conversation with Boomer Anderson.
Joining us today is Dr. Boomer Anderson, CEO of Smarter Not Harder, CEO of Home Hope, right? Health Optimization, Medicine and Practice. And we consider like the trio of Troscriptions, right? The leading experts in health optimization for all of us, people that are not just healthcare practitioners, but other entrepreneurs, as well as just your, Jack and Jane people, right? Every day.
Yeah, so welcome, Boomer.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and I have to say it's a treat to be here. First, when you look around at the health circle, and I would say this community is quite small, or at least you get to know people on certain levels, and you begin to realize who you connect with, who you relate with, and there's people that you always look forward to meeting when you're going to conferences, and I would say you two are among the top. And so thank you for welcoming me to your home.
Thank you.
This beautiful island that I don't want to leave. But I'm very happy to be here today.
No, we're so happy to have you.
Yeah. Let's start off with how did you start with all of this? Your journey into the brand, your specialty,
and just whatever you want to share, because
go anywhere with this.
Yeah.
So let's go back to childbirth. Yeah. All right. So I'll give you guys a little bit of background on my mom and my dad. So my dad was finance guy, operations, did all the stuff in finance that nobody wants to do. My mother was a yoga teacher, and so I had this interesting East meets West dichotomy of I would come home from school or athletics, and my dad would be watching CNBC, and I would get fascinated with ticker tapes of stocks. And then I'd go upstairs, and this was before meditation was cool. My mom would be staring at a wall, sitting there, and just staring at a wall for 20 minutes doing mornings. And you just think okay, is my mom okay? But it turns out she was meditating. So I grew up with that dichotomy at home. From a very early age that there was this connection between health and performance, and went through school, had incidences where I was so stressed for calculus exams, because at that point calculus didn't make sense to me, that I would call my mother, and she would be like, oh, teach me pranayama breathing, right? And all of a sudden, okay, I could focus again. It's great. And then I would pass the exam, go into work, and I went to work on Wall Street, and this is 2008, so 2008, Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy, AIG gets nationalized, and that's my first day on Wall Street, right? And so what I wanted to do evaporated in a couple of days, and I was just struggling to find a desk. But after that first year of working 20-hour days, 6-7 days a week, I reconnected with health and reconnected with going for a run, and at that point I would say my concept of health was very rudimentary, because everything I was doing was, okay, how do I look good naked, how do I perform well, and how do I sleep less, which turns out sleep is a key ingredient in health, which I was denied back then. I got shipped from New York to Singapore, had this freak situation where I was made the head of a desk in Singapore, which is a big deal in finance, at the age of 26, and I had 14 countries in terms of territory. So my territory was from India to Australia, everything in ASEAN except for the Philippines, ironically, and then everything south of China. And so I was on a plane constantly. but I kept in the back of my mind, like, hey, as long as you look good naked, which is stupid, you know, there's a few other like genetic disclosures I need to make here. I have I haven't drawn the genetic lottery, and so all of my interest in health around this sort of physical appearance was because my grandfather died at a very early age of a heart attack. He was 400 pounds. My father has heart disease. My grandmother died of Alzheimer's. My other grandmother died of cancer of unknown origin, and so I knew that like the cards were stacked against me, right? And so I kept doing this, and I was following whatever diet that Men's Health recommends. You know how it goes, right?
All that.
So one day it's keto. I was never really vegan, but you know, keto, paleo, whatever. And I would always take it to the extreme. That's just was my personality at the time. Uh, and so I did that for a while, and at the age of 30, I was like, you know what? I met my wife, my now wife, and we decided to move to Europe, and I was going to leave my job. And so a couple of days after uh, quitting, I had this great insurance plan, and so I figured I'd maximize it before leaving. Finally found that doctor in Singapore who would order any test that I asked for, which included a cardiac CT scan for calcium. And I found out shortly after my 30th birthday, or right around there, that I had heart disease.
Wow.
30 years old.
Right.
And so heart disease is the number one preventable cause of death, I think, in the world. And I was thrown through a loop because I'd done everything that these magazines told me to do, right? Yeah, I was drinking. Yeah, I wasn't sleeping very much. And my cholesterol was low, so why is this? And it really began because I was given a statin. There's nothing wrong with statins, but I had low cholesterol. I got all the side effects. And so I started looking at the data behind it. You know, why did I get the side effects? And at that time, genetics were becoming a thing. Genetics to me were just like statistics, so I used that to create a more precision way of looking at health. And so we moved to Amsterdam. I end up starting a podcast. And I started a podcast at the time. It was called Decoding Superhuman. This is before like people started podcasts, right? And I started that podcast. You want to know why? Because I didn't want to pay for consults. So I was like, you know, the great way to shortcut this. Like, how do I get people to talk to me about questions that I have and not pay for consults? And it worked out. And along that way, I got connected because I'd never done an episode on hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Guess how one here, right? And I've never done an episode on one, so I talked to Scott. And so Scott Scher's been on the show before. And he ends up talking about this thing called holobiont, and afterwards sends me a message. He's like, hey, do you want to meet this guy, Dr. Ted Ochakoso? I don't know who he is. Ted keeps a very low profile. And he connected me to Ted. And Ted talked about his health optimization medicine and practice framework, which at that point it was a framework. It wasn't built out like it is today. And after that conversation, we were scheduled to speak for 45 minutes, spoke for over 3 hours. And afterwards, I was like, how do I learn from him? Turned out he was going to London for the first Health Optimization Summit. And I landed in London, went to the first lecture, and somebody taps me on the back of the shoulder and says, open your mouth.
That's an amazing start of a conversation.
Yeah, open your mouth. And I look behind me, and I barely see who it is. I'm like, okay, this is the only person in the world that I probably would trust.
Yes.
And it hits me with a drop of LSD. And that's kind of how it all kickstarted, right? But I think to kind of answer your question a little bit more from my angle, I got into it because initially I knew the cards were stacked against me. I did everything to avoid what ultimately ended up happening. And from there, just tried to unpack different ways of solving that issue. Later learned that sleeping 4 to 6 hours a night, probably not a good idea. I think I averaged around 4.5 hours a night from the age of 18 to 30. And traveling all these time zones screws with something called chronobiology. We know that chronobiology has knock-on effects when you certainly break your circadian rhythms. And I experienced all those effects. But what came out of it was something beautiful. Like I'm working on truly these perspective shifts of getting people to focus on health rather than disease. And so, yeah, it's been probably 5 years now since I met Ted and Scott in London. So it's a heck of a drop of LSD.
Not because we know Ted, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It seemed, I mean, it's, yeah, just,
It fits, right?
It
does.
yeah, yeah.
it checks out
Yeah.
completely and totally. Not surprised at all.
I loved hearing that model. That, coming from being just traditionally trained in the Western, realm of medicine, hearing the focus that's not on disease, but on health. And that's something that we've always really promoted, but I didn't know how to put it into words. But you guys did it so beautifully, and it was our first time at the symposium last year. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but having that intimate setting, and also learning, and really connecting, with the experts on not just the knowledge of what they're passing on, but the technology, sometimes the supplementation or whatnot, that's connected with it. But I couldn't. I just had no words. Just coming up with some of the words on how to describe it, and just pushing the needle and the threshold of how we can practice, and having a name for it, being a health optimization practitioner would be. I mean, it's a huge goal for a lot of us, right? But I think this is now is the time to kind of redefine that, and I think you guys are at the leading edge of it for sure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we have been at it for a long time. It's actually based on Ted's framework from over 15 years at this point.
So he said,
working with the likes of government leaders of various countries to your movie stars to athletes of all kinds. So it's been quite a journey.
What has been the biggest challenge for you personally making this transition?
Oh, from finance to health?
From finance to health, but then also, trying to, get people to change their mindset around health, especially I feel like here in the U.S.
Yeah, so just to kind of explore a little bit of those perspective shifts, because when we talk about perspective shifts, it's not just from disease to health, but we have three main ones. From pathogenesis, which is looking at the body. Most people go to the doctor when they're sick, right? And that's pathogenesis, so disease, to salutogenesis, which is the science of getting healthy. You look from geriatrization, so looking at aging, and this is very popular right now, of talking about the science of aging and how to age backwards, to neotenization, which is how you get younger and those behavior changes. And then there's organology, which the whole medical paradigm right now, which there's nothing inherently wrong with it, it's just not great at dealing with complex illnesses. It's really good, the current medical system, it's great for if you get shot, God forbid, or if you break an arm, you go to the emergency room, you'll get fixed, right? But you go from organology, so if I have an issue with my kidney, I go to my nephrologist. If I have an issue with my heart, I go to the cardiologist. The problem with that is a cardiologist views the body in terms of the heart. Not all of them. There's a lot of integrative cardiologists out there. But there's that shift from organology to holobiontology, and the holobiont is a concept developed largely by Lynn Margulis around your body is a collection of organisms, and we know this, right? All of us here know this, that in our gut we have microbes, we have gut bacteria. Our cells actually came together as a marriage of an ancient bacteria and the mitochondria, right? And that collection of organisms, viruses, fungi, etc., makes up you. And so that perspective shift really requires you to look at a body in a different way. How do I balance a series of organisms rather than I am this super organism, and therefore I must have 1200 testosterone, as an example. And so what has been the biggest challenge is, we know education is the long term, right? And I have a good barometer in my own family and my extended family of when people start asking me like, "Oh yeah, I heard about methylene blue on Joe Rogan" or something like that. Then I know we're starting to make inroads, right?
Right.
But it
Yeah.
does take a long time. So the challenge has been education and movements, which is really what we're creating here, is a movement. Uh, that's discipline. So day in, day out, showing up that you're going to send out, whether it's that Facebook post or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat. I don't know if people still use Snapchat, but like whatever network it is, like showing up and sending out that post, showing up and delivering that lecture, etc. You have to do that day in, day out. And there's been times where I gave a lecture in front of a group of anesthesiologists, and as a non-medical professional, so I practice health optimization medicine, but as a practitioner, right? And so as a non-medical professional, uh, a group of anesthesiologists looks at me and says, "Okay, what's your degree in?" And you get people in the audience that are like, "I don't really care. I'm not going to listen to what you say because of this is your degree." This is also why like Scott and Ted do a lot of lecturing too, because they are medical doctors, and so it's been a challenge more to wake people up
Yeah.
and open their eyes because and I think one of the issues, particularly in the United States, is that healthcare is expensive, and so therefore people view this as a burden. And I had the benefit of working in an industry, and still do have the benefits of working in an industry where if you show up healthier, you directly see the results of being healthier. Whereas if I'm in a general job, I may not see that from a day-to-day basis. I may not see that until I'm 80 years old and can no longer pick up my grandkids. Hopefully you make it to 80, right? So there's been challenges along the way, but we're starting to see like, okay, this efforts, these work that we're putting through, things like the symposium and how well that goes. And I generally judge the symposium for us. Symposium's about quality of people and quality of the community, quality of the education, not numbers. And when you start to see like people come back year after year, or conversations being had in the hallways, that kind of thing, that really gives me a super amount of excitement, actually.
Yeah, no, and it was our first time, going to your symposium last year in Vegas. And that was honest to God, probably one of the best events we've ever been to.
Mm-mm.
Like I didn't
Thank you.
even want to get up,
I agree.
to go to the
If I
bathroom.
wasn't burnt right now, I'd probably be blushing.
You're not. You're not burnt.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah, we learned so much,
Yeah.
with every guest, and some of them, I mean, we've been to their talks before, right? But when and we're familiar with this, when you're in more of an intimate environment, you just feel like, as a presenter, that it's so much easier to come from a different space, versus like, okay, what did I memorize? What points do I want to make sure that I get across, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's still there, but you can be a little bit more of yourself within an intimate environment and have people connect with you on a different level.
And having the ability to interact with the speakers afterwards and like
Yeah.
ask questions.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like when Chris Shade goes up and gives a 60-minute lecture
Yeah.
on detoxification. And like I love Shade. He's
Mm.
when you let him go technical, he goes super technical, and it is like orgasmic to listen to. But it's interesting because he also has his keynotes where he's doing his 30 minutes, and it has a certain ebb and flow to it. And what we wanted with the symposium was, okay, this is largely meant for clinicians or people who are really on that journey to health optimize, right? And you're gonna drink from the fire hose for a weekend, but you're gonna come out of there with so much more knowledge. And you let people like Chris go nuts, and they go nuts. He was on there like saying stuff that about the relevance or why you wouldn't want to use spermidine versus this, and I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Like I actually am going to sit here and take notes, right? So
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but it says a lot about you folks as leaders and your connection. Really, the three of you, and how you folks. Well, even with Jody, right?
Yeah.
How you folks connect. You can feel that through everybody that's attending, through all of your speakers. Everybody was so passionate. And every time we talk to you folks, and it can be, in this environment or just, casually, you folks like literally live and breathe your work.
Thank you.
We definitely appreciate that we know what it's like. And you said something funny where, you know, your friends and family really won't believe you until like Joe Rogan says it, right?
It's
And
true.
they'll come to you maybe when they get a little desperate, you know, and that's kind of what we were experiencing for a while
Yeah.
too, you know, but now that we feel like, you know, we picked up a little bit more traction, you know, we can educate more, speak to our clients more. You know, it's actually, it actually works.
Yeah.
It actually really does
Well,
work.
we're in Hawaii, right? So a wave analogy is appropriate. So maybe we're approaching like the crest of the wave, right? And hopefully that wave continues.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, but really giving, you know, shout out to you folks and gratitude, you know, for people like us. You know, you folks have really been able to set a standard and a presence that benefits us. So, you know, really mahalo to you folks for putting yourselves out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So our first experience with you folks wasn't home.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
My first experience with you, I think, was Orlando.
It was Orlando.
Orlando, and you guys had a small booth, right? And I've heard of you folks, you know, through one of Dave's podcasts, as well as some others that you guys were speaking on, especially Dr. Ted.
Yeah.
And we were just walking around the vendors, you know, just in between speakers. But I saw you folks there, and you guys had like a little bowl of
This is the dime bag days.
little dime bags,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What is this stuff?" You know. And then it was just a happy face with the blue tongue, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is the stuff that Dave was, you know, that Dr. Ted was mentioning."
And we got numerous comments from people, particularly who were of an older generation.
Mhm.
They're like, "Oh yeah, I used to see these stickers at Grateful Dead concerts, and that was what they put LSD in." I keep referring to LSD for some reason, but and they're like, "Wow, this is interesting to see." And we have, over the years, of course, we've developed the packaging a little bit more, but the dime bags were like the OG days, back when. I mean, every time you release a product, you never know if it's going to work or not, right? And so when you want to give people samples, give them a sample. Now we have like our actual packaging, but it's a 2 troche sample. Back then it was just like 1 troche in a dime bag. And I wasn't a pot smoker in high school, so I didn't know what a dime bag was until we actually started handing out troches and dime bags. But the comments that we got were ranging from, I remember giving it to Max Lugavere, and Max was like, "What the hell is this?" Or Ben was like, "This is ghetto packaging," right? and it was just funny to see the reactions that you get. But the quality was always there. Like we always tested everything. We've had basically the same testing procedures from the beginning, right? And they're always so rigorous. The joke internally is that we like to call ourselves Fun Pharma, because we do all of the analytical rigor of a pharmaceutical company, but we just people need help now. And so going through clinical trials, sure, I could do it with Ted's formulas, and we could probably make a lot more money being a pharmaceutical company, but you wouldn't have that help until 5-10 years down the line when we get through all the phase 3 trials, right?
Yeah.
So how do we give people help now? We can do all of the rigor. We'll give you all of the tests if you want to look at them, and ensure that you get a product that is consistent, but also a high-performing product time in and time out.
You know, one of the most impressive things that I will say, you know, it opened up my eyes. That, you know, the delivery method, you know, of it, and you know, just being somebody. There's that. You know, that was a big selling point, right? Everybody was like, "Oh, it's blue tongue," you know.
It helped with virality. Even the New York Post picked up on it at one point, and like the New York Post wrote this article. It was about some friends of ours, the biohacker babes, right? And they had blue tongues, and it was slightly negative on all of the talk. And I'm pretty sure the doctor in Australia that was quoted has never been seen again.
Right.
But it was helpful for us, right? So the blue tongue early days are, it's good. I still do blue tongues every once in a while.
Right, it's like one of the easiest marketing methods, right? But like we're no stranger to the nootropic realm, you know, as well as, you know, supplementation in general. But I loved how the supplement itself really tied in with your guys' values, with the home hope. And it was just the due diligence that you're just mentioning, like the research, the amount of research that goes into it, not just because of the molecules, but even going into like first pass metabolism type of stuff. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like that's brilliant, like to figure that out. And the delivery system and to experience the way that it's delivered is game changing. And I've tried so many different things, pharmaceutical grade versus like natural stuff that they say, right, that is nootropic out there. And I will say, like, this is probably one of the top ones that I'll get a response like that. And I swear by it. We have all of our clients use it. We do it in our protocols for hyperbaric chambers and other technology that we do. But
red light,
as entrepreneurs that travel a whole bunch, game changing. Like we usually need a day to recover, but since using something as I don't know if I want to say simple.
You can. It's fine. Nobody's gonna take offense.
But it's not as simple, as methylene blue. Like, getting educated on how to use it and what it's about, and ensuring the quality, because quality is a huge thing for us. Like we make sure that all our check boxes are marked off, before we start carrying anything, whether it be, supplement or even tech. It's got to check all the boxes. And a big one for us really is presence. And that was a huge thing that we found from you guys from the very beginning. You guys were completely honest, transparent, nothing to hide. You guys were in dime bags, like extremely transparent and super connected from the very beginning. Present is what the word I used, right? And I just wanted to kind of give you folks like a big, like, I don't know, round of applause. I don't know what I want to say. Like, it was super impressive from the very beginning, and I truly appreciate our connection on that end.
And thank you guys. You've been supporters forever, and really appreciate it. And for us, there's this story that I go back to. So I'll go back to my finance days here for a second. My first client when I was in finance was Polo Ralph Lauren, or first client where I actually got to do something. So to give everybody some background here, if you're an analyst in investment banking, you basically put together presentations, slide decks, and you do all of like the spreadsheets behind it, that kind of stuff. And you rarely get to actually meet the client as an analyst. I was fortunate enough that my boss, who I'm still good friends with, he brought me into meetings, and the first one where I actually got to do something, say something, was Polo Ralph Lauren, which is pretty cool as like a 22-year-old, right? And you go to Ralph Lauren's offices, and they're super fancy, and you hear the stories of the years of how they grew the company, because every company has stories. And one of them came more about a person leaving than anything else. And he was the former head designer at Ralph Lauren. Name's John Barbados, right? And John Barbados goes into Ralph's office, and this is the story I was told, and says, hey, I'm thinking of leaving and going and starting my own fashion brand. And you can imagine if you lose a key employee, like how hard is that? But Ralph's response always stuck with me, which was, he said to John, he's like, okay, if you're gonna go and do something new and different, or don't do it at all. And that stuck with me, and one of the reasons why I think I like Troscriptions so much is that we're doing something that nobody else is doing. The Buccal troche is a delivery mechanism that's largely used in hospitals for oxytocin. You can also get ketamine troches, a few other things, right? And we're the first people to really commercialize it, right? And so the Buccal troche, lozenge, upper lip, cheek, and gums dissolves 15 to 30 minutes. And it has a very reliable effect because it bypasses first pass metabolism, but also because it's close to the circulatory structure of the brain. And so for us, and for me, one of the amazing benefits of being diagnosed with a complex illness that may or may not do harm to me in the future is that it very quickly made me realize that, like, if I'm going to work on something, I want to work on something that's new, innovative, and really going to change the world. And that's just not Troscriptions. It's everything that we do. It's about that perspective shift from disease to health.
I mean, it's the values, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that truly resonates with us as well. Like, that's the long term.
One of our core values as a company is something called non-reciprocal altruism, and that's interesting, right? Because altruism is, I think everything's good, right? But it like non-reciprocal altruism means you give for the sake, you just give because you're giving. You don't expect anything back, right? And for us, it's the framework. We don't take, none of us make money on a nonprofit, right? We show up to those events every year. We're lecturing. We're doing those events for free. All of the tuition fees that we collect get reinvested into that framework. And again, it's more about giving back, right? Because all of us have been very successful in our own right. But how do we teach others how to practice health? How do we uh, give? We have the brain power, mostly weighted towards TED, but like we have the brain power to solve really complex issues. So why not invest that brain power in producing something like Troscriptions?
You wrote something on here, we on our list of questions, and it was about your connection with your wife.
Yeah.
Do you want to share about that?
Well, I'm not quite burnt, so I can't hide the blushing. So Bessie, my wife, is a very special person, and then like I know you guys met when you were younger, right? And I had various dating experiences over the years, right? And keep in mind, this is also, I met Bessie when I was in finance, and so you talked about presence earlier, right? And if you would have seen me 15 years ago, 10 years ago, presence wouldn't be a word you would think of when it comes to talking about me. And I was always that person that was like set goal, achieve goal, set goal, achieve goal. I remember one of the benefits of working in banking is you get to go to these really nice restaurants, right? And I would just sit there underneath the table like no look BlackBerry because we were using Blackberries back then, right? Like no look BlackBerry emails. And you're sending like these no look text messages, and I'm acting like I'm paying attention to you, but in reality, I'm just sending this message. And I like presence wasn't even in my thought process. And so I met Bessie on a dance floor in Bali on New Year's Eve. And the first question she asked me, can you guess what it is?
No.
No, of course not. Yeah, it's a random one. It could be one.
Did you hear anything I said?
Yeah. Did you hear anything? Are you
Sorry,
paying attention?
I'm just saying.
No. It's fine. So she asked me if I was gay. And so she's like, are you gay?
No clues. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I bring that up because Neil Strauss is a big lover of our products. He wrote a book called The Game, and in there they teach you like pickup language or whatever. And I was like, am I being picked up right now? Like, what is this? So Bessie and I met on a dance floor on New Year's Eve, and we both happened to live in Singapore. We then went on a first date, and I can immediately tell like there's something different about her. We were talking about cinematography of the Grand Budapest Hotel or something like this, right? And these are the types of conversations that we got into. And pretty soon I'm like flying back early from these business trips, whereas I used to like spend weekends in London or whatever, to be with her. And what I think she brought to my life is presence, or the idea of like it's okay to be here now, right? Which is something I didn't have before, and so maybe you guys get to meet her later in the week. But she's been like this radical influence of being able to accept that the waves will sometimes be higher and surf those waves accordingly. And she's been an incredible partner throughout. We actually got married almost a little over 4 years ago now. So, yeah, courthouse in Amsterdam. Thank you, COVID. It was supposed to be in Bali, but we got married at a courthouse. So
No, that's so awesome. Sorry.
Wait, how did you answer her question?
Yeah. It's funny because it was back then I was drinking, so I had a couple of margaritas at this point, and we're on the dance floor, and I don't remember what the sequence of events was, but like the fireworks around New Year's Eve went off like right then, and of course you start kissing somebody, and it just so happened that she was right in front of me, so it was probably more like a challenge of like prove it, that kind of thing. So that was how it started. I don't really think I answered the question with anything more than action. So, yeah,
Well, there you go.
yeah,
There you go.
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
But it's personally for me, even as a male and a husband as well, like it's nice to hear other stories like this, and to really share a commonality with having this kind of connection with somebody that can really bring you grounded.
Yeah.
My background, I'm pretty analytical myself, but since meeting her, and I was very fortunate to have met her at a very young age, back in 9, but
Right, 99.
99. But it was interesting because I've always been a very busy person. Like I like to make sure I'm juggling a whole bunch of things for so many different reasons. I have a lot of interests and things like that. But I remember that the first day that I met her, it was like, oh my gosh, we have common ground, right? But it's more of like even something that I'm not familiar with. Like I'm just extremely fascinated. That part helped me to get a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
And
That curiosity is
right.
Helps relationships evolve too.
Right. Yeah. And she's hot, right? And you're just like staring at her like, wow, like such a it's fascinating, extremely.
So how did he win
Amazing.
you over? I don't think I heard this.
Well, my story was
Yeah.
oh gosh,
Time do we have?
Dara,
So
please don't.
I am. He asked.
Yeah.
He asked. So I heard a lot about him from like freshman year, because I would get a lot of like banquet pictures and like from different girls, different banquets, same weekend. Wow, this guy was busy. And I would hear his name. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school,
I went to an all-boys Catholic high school as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
and I swear he dated half my
Oh
class.
my gosh.
But not just in my school. I also got pictures from other schools.
I can't believe this is publicly known now.
And it would be, I was like, oh, David Woodward.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Same weekend, different girl, different school. So one of my friends in English class, she was like, Dara, I really want to stay with my friend. And I was like, I was just curious. I was like, well, who is it? She was like, oh, David Woodward. I was like, oh, no. I'm all set. And my cousin at the time was 2 years younger than me, so I was a junior. And she couldn't go anywhere unless I went with her, because she was the exact opposite of me. Like, she wanted to go to every single event. She was just like a social butterfly. So I remember, she was like, please, can we go to the dance, which was at his school that weekend. And my friends were like, Dad, we'll just take her, and we'll drop her off. And he was working he was selling tickets.
Oh yeah. That's right. I was in the front. That's right.
So that was the first time we had actually met, like looked at each other eye to eye. And I do remember the first time I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. I was like, okay, but I'm just dropping her off. Like, I'm leaving, right? But I couldn't drop her off because she was getting a little wild.
Mm.
So me and my friend stayed. And we ended up talking. And that was it. I was like, oh, he's actually...
No, but I didn't stop there because I got your number, right?
Yes.
And when I tried,
Well, you got my pager number.
it was pagers at the
Yes.
time.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
So, when I paged her and when she would call, like, she made it super, super clear that she wasn't interested in any relationship.
Yeah.
She literally was planning to be a nut.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
That was never
That's a good, yeah.
I
That's
asked
a
her,
good,
I was
good
like,
cover.
hey, so,
Yeah.
I don't know, Like, gave me the heart, hard to get. But, like, for me, like, I was so intrigued with her, She was like, there wasn't anybody that I've ever met before in my life, so. And all the girls, I can't believe I just said that. The girls that I've dated. See what you did? This is what you did.
We'll
edit this.
Yeah.
So the girls that I've dated, like, I didn't feel that that connection. That was when I
Sure.
really experienced a connection that I've never felt before.
Yeah.
But it felt amazing. Like it was such a deep spiritual experience and connection.
Yeah.
And it still is today, you know?
And I'm gonna be honest, like I feel like that taught me to have that deeper connection also with other people,
Yeah.
right? And to have not just, you know, make a friend to make a friend.
Mhm.
You know, and sometimes that's nice, but when you meet somebody, you know, then I knew what it was truly like to have a connection with somebody.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm sure you felt that
Yeah.
with your wife. And it's obvious with you and Ted
And
Yeah.
Scott.
and Scott.
Like we always talk about on all of our podcasts. We talk about sanative connection, right, or sanative connection. It depends on what part of the world,
Yeah.
but you know, that healing through connection is a real thing, and the perspective of what healing looks like, you know, to people is a real thing, right? And we can totally see it, you know, from the outside looking in. It's always interesting to hear it, you know, from one of our guests. So.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was something that you definitely experienced with Bessie.
Oh, of course,
Right.
yeah. It's we both. I was so extreme. I mean, if you believe in yin and yang energy system,
Mhm.
I was so extreme yang that, uh, like, I had to control everything. I have naturally high testosterone, but like, had to control everything. Everything was planned to a T, and there's like so much rigidity there that it didn't allow for very much flexibility or serendipity in my life. And then, you know, I meet this woman who's wasn't quite as extreme on the inside, but we've sort of both come closer to middle as a result of this. So
Yeah.
it's been a great journey. Like before her, I didn't have a huge appreciation for art. Now I do, and even how we manage our household. It's like okay, I do the finances side, and she still gets involved in stuff and wants to participate. But at the same time, she's a designer by trade, and so when it comes to like how the house looks, it's all her, and you know things look a lot better as a result too.
Oh, I agree on that one.
Yeah.
On my end too. It always looks nicer when she, you know, all the girls in the office, especially, you know, when they start to decorate the area. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's way better than what I imagined.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, real quick, I know I really wanted to touch upon the enlightenment
Oh,
Sure.
yes, you mentioned that.
question. Yeah. So I feel like your personal health journey, I mean, that was an enlightenment. And then, you know, Dr. Ted putting LSD in your mouth, that was like a form of enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
But what was really your moment of enlightenment? I mean, because it feels more like a mission,
Mm.
like when we talk
Sure.
to you know, rather than, you know, this is my position, I'm CEO of, you know, home health. What was your moment where you knew you wanted to work for this company and create these things and take it to the public?
Mm.
Yeah. Might end up being a series of moments, but let's try and I kind of think of these as bifurcation points, right? And so your life's going in one way, and then all of a sudden something happens, and it just sort of hits you off in another. You mentioned a couple of big ones, right? So the heart issue, meeting my wife before that was definitely a huge bifurcation point. LSD, whatever you want to call it. First time I did ayahuasca, we can get into that. But I think let's step back for a moment and just go into like our company, so SMH, which is the parent company of Troscriptions, and also Health Optimization Medicine and Practice. That backdrop, we say perspective shifts, but really, what are we trying to do? Democratize enlightenment, and you could enlightenment's an obtuse word, and we could probably unpack that a little bit. But really, what enlightenment to me is presence, right? And so, how do we have more presence in our everyday lives, more presence in our decision making, more presence with our families, right? And so when we look at enlightenment, it's we say it's freedom from the illusion of the self, right? And that's a Dr. Ted definition. And the self is the roles we play in everyday life, but it's not necessarily us. Right? And we get tied up in this idea of the role that we're playing. We, the parent, we, the CEO, we, the physical therapist, whatever it is. But how do you still stay present and not let the ego uh, grab a hold of you to the point where you're no longer able to make effective decisions, or you're making decisions purely based on emotion, anger, whatever it is. And when we look at how to bring that forth into the world, the idea of creating products to help people remove those obstacles in the way. If you think about pain, for example, or insomnia. Let's go down insomnia. Think about sleep. When you don't sleep, what happens? You have clients that don't sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
you lose control of your hunger. You probably are short to respond to people, and you end up in situations where afterwards regret what you said, and it could have avoided so much conflict. Right? So our products help remove those types of obstacles from you getting present. Uh, and then really the framework of Home Hope is how we establish a long-term presence or light. So you balance the nutrients and hormones of somebody's body, and it does take 6 to 9 months, which is why you need products to support it. But along that journey, you start to feel better, you start to be more present. Now, going back to your question about what was that moment that really for me kind of allowed me to focus on this type of life and really focusing on projects that matter. It would probably, if I had to pick one singular moment, it's getting told that at the age of 30 you have a 95% chance of having a cardiac event in your life. It very quickly, I mean, initially it was like dropping a nuclear bomb in my life. Like, hey, how did this happen, right? Like at that time, I think I had 10% body fat. I was an elite level CrossFit athlete, going to the physical therapist every single week because I did something wrong in my body. But like, I was in a lot of pain. Don't get me wrong, but I was doing everything that I thought was right. And then I get shown the risk. They basically show you a risk chart, right? And they show you, it's like age on one axis and risk on the other. And I'm like, 30 and 95% chance risk of having a cardiac event in my life. So that moment really set me on the path of saying, I will only want to work on things that could change the world. Because I have certain skills that in this world are useful. I'm a creative problem solver. I can build things. By things, I mean companies. And those are useful. And so how do I allocate my time to doing something that really matters? And around that time I also met Ted and Scott, and they had a roughly packaged sort of idea of what they're doing with Troscriptions and Home Hope. And I just thought I could be additive to that process. And I could contribute to, I mean, health is my hobby, and it still is my number one hobby. When I was in finance, it was really the only thing I did outside of finance, but it still is my number one hobby. And I still think if you look at areas where we need to emphasize brain power or put brain power towards in order to help put humanity on a better path, I would say health is one for sure. And if I were to take more of a first principles approach, if you can help people be healthy, a lot of the other problems may fall away. And so that may contribute, if people are healthier, more present, may contribute to people making better decisions, better governance, right? You may actually see improvements in our education system, which is so outdated.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking around at what we do to our environment, just simply tragic. But I think that health is that Archimedes lever that you can pull, and if you get enough people, enough really good people that have some influence, it's a lever that you can pull that can kind of push us as planet off in a different direction.
Wow. That was beautifully said, and I'm so happy that we got that recorded.
I
Thank
know.
you.
Very
That was
well
wonderful.
articulated. For sure.
Yeah. So, you folks are like the powerhouse. I mean, really, that's how we see you. I mean, it's just
You guys are making me blush.
really, and so we're so interested to see what is in your folks' future. Like, if you want to talk about it, if you don't want to talk about it, it's okay. You're some of the amazing, innovations with Troscriptions, with Home.
We've been in your podcast too, Smarter Not Harder.
Yeah, so we do, you hit it on all of them. So we have the Smarter Not Harder podcast, we have Troscriptions, we have Home Hope, we also have Smarter Not Harder itself, which is the parent company. And Smarter Not Harder is, think of it first as innovations, mainly towards life sciences and mainly towards this goal of health optimization. And what we do there is play. And I mean this in the most fun way possible, because I think Ted, myself, Scott, actually, if you break it out into a triangle, you can think of like Scott is the promoter. You guys see him all over social media, right? Like
Right.
he's really freaking good at it. And then you have Ted as intellectual brain technologist. Would If you can let Ted draft his ideal day, he'd be reading research papers all day long or playing with artificial intelligence, which is what he does lately.
Right.
Then you have me in sort of the driver role, right? And pushing people forward, organizing this, and really moving us towards a point, on that journey. Right? And so, Smarter Not Harder, we play, and we play with coming up with ideas, and these ideas are largely to either support our home health practitioners to drive that movement forward, or to help alleviate suffering of some kind. And the first of those innovations was Troscriptions. So we spun it out to a company. It's been doing very well. So let's go through Troscriptions and what the future is there. You can kind of look at us and say, I go back to what I said earlier about the brain power. And we have the brain power to tackle really complex issues. And the idea for us is to continue to look at issues that warrant attention. You can expect us to look at things like pain. You can expect us to look at mood. Those types of issues are very complex biochemical issues, and we'll tackle them with very elegant solutions. Also, sexual health. We have a product in the pipeline called Trogasm, which is kind of funny, but we'll have both male and female versions, right? And so the product pipeline there is so robust, it's just always hard for us to find the ingredients, because we say it's novel ingredients, novel delivery mechanism. And those novel ingredients start with methylene blue. We also have something called agarine that's in a feature in a couple of our troches, cordycepin. Those are all relatively new, and so they require education as well. Again, going back to what Scott is really good at. Just sourcing those ingredients and finding them in cost-effective ways is challenging. But so that's Troscriptions. We'll continue tackling those complex issues. With Home Hope, it's a movement. It's a long-term investment. And so we'll continue we do the symposium every year. This year it's Boulder, Colorado, October 17th and 18th. Hope we can get you guys there. And then it's always going to be, the premise of Home Hope is, if you attend the conference, you're going to learn, and it's from a clinician's perspective of what you do if a patient is in front of you right now. So even if you are a patient, you're going to learn something there. With Home Hope, you'll see us, you can already see it on the website. We have artificial intelligence integrated into the platform. That's all built internally. We didn't go outside to do that. And that will be a key middle layer of our companies going forward, is the use of artificial intelligence. But you'll also see us dabble in new modules. There's been a request among practitioners to have a business module, for example, like how to set up your business, how to run your business, how to market your business, all of that stuff. And then hormones. Hormones is probably the number one requested module, so you'll see that. And I guess at Smarter Not Harder level, the innovations will continue. I think between particularly Ted and myself, but also Scott, we have a dozen ideas a day. And so it's just a matter of, can we evolve it to spin these ideas out faster? There's a lot we want to do, and there's only so much time, but hopefully we can make a difference in a few people's lives.
Oh my gosh.
I can totally see it.
Yeah. We're so excited for all of this new stuff. We're so honored to be a part
Exactly.
of,
That movement.
Yeah, of your movement.
Yeah.
And we always appreciate the support. I said it at the outset of this podcast, and I do mean it. When you go to the health conferences, there are people that you look forward to seeing, and then there's people who you're like, no, I'm gonna shake a hand, and I know I need to shake the hand because of who they are, but like I'm gonna probably go get a coffee without 3 minutes and wash my hands afterwards. You guys fit in the first category, right? It's like every time I'm in Hawaii with my wife's family, and of course I'm gonna stop by and say hi, and been so welcoming, and like, you guys are unbelievable. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're making us blush now.
You're slightly tanner than me. So.
Okay, so one of the foundational questions that we typically wrap it up with have to do with the name of our podcast, which is Optimize Your Naʻau. And I know we shared with you already, what Naʻau is, and I think we had a separate conversation because you had a question on what the name of our business really meant, right? Yeah. So, for those listeners that are not familiar with it, our Naʻau is, if we were to literally translate, right, we're talking about the things that are going on in our body, our organs, if you will, people that look at it in a literal sense. But, in Hawaiian belief systems and our culture in general, we like to describe our Naʻau as an energy as well, as where our source of life comes from, and also just like almost like a gut feeling, if you will, if we were to translate it somewhat plainly. But there's so many multiple meanings of Naʻau. So with that being said, how would you optimize your Naʻau, or how do you optimize your Naʻau?
So to me, that life force begins with presence, right? And this is a word that seems to come up a lot in this conversation, right? And so anything I can do to bring me here now, and something can be as simple as a meditation where I have my toe pressing on this floor and brings me here right now. So let's go first down meditation route. I meditate. So if you look at my day, I wake up, we have a team in the Philippines, and I could immediately dive in, and when I'm sort of misbehaving, I will immediately dive in. It doesn't set you off in a very present manner. And so you can look at mornings and say, all right, I have a meditation process to that. That sets me or centers me in a certain way. I have a meditation process there. You can also use things like breath work. And until we were talking about this the other day, right? I come back and forth on breath work, right? Because breath work for me, it certainly had its phase in the health world, and I know it's useful, and you can immediately feel the effects. And I go kind of in and out of breath work, but even using sometimes a device helps me to get that biofeedback, so something like HeartMath. But also there's other devices out there where you can just use a timer. Bob Troya, who's a good friend of mine, has this awesome breathing app that I love because it helps time your breath work, and I think it's free still. But just anything that can bring me to presence. So meditation, breath work, times with my wife are just, it's fun because like we both work so hard. She's a user experience designer, and sometimes like she stays up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Bess, you don't even like, it's not your company. Why are you doing this? But she just cares so much, right? But Saturdays we have this routine. Actually, it's just every weekend day. We go for a walk. And we go for a walk and go grab a coffee. Now, when in Amsterdam, we used to have really good espresso, and we'd find like a great place for espresso. Chicago, not so much.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is about Americans and espresso. They just haven't quite figured it out yet. Some places are better than others. I've been told of a few here, but we go for a walk and just talk about things. And these conversations can be so wide ranging. It can be anything from like, you know, mortgage to like, should we refinance the mortgage, which is pretty standard, you know, relationship stuff, to like how, if you were the president of this country, how would you solve this issue? And we get into so much, but like just like it's a very centering experience. And so when I'm gone on the weekends at events or something, that's actually something that I miss, is that being there for those walks. So I think those, for me, again, it goes back to presence and anything that generates that. You know, some things in work certainly do that too, but meditation, breath work, walks with my wife. I'm a pretty simple person with a lot of supplements in my refrigerator.
And molecules.
Yeah,
in your other
yeah,
refrigerator.
exactly. The other refrigerator.
I love that that was your last thing, was the supplements, like, and everything that was first was the non,
Yeah.
you know,
The back to
physical
basics.
things, right?
I mean, I could have gone right into nootropics if you wanted me to, but I think you have to have good foundations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's a few that Ted lays out around stress, sleep, movement, sunlight, all of that stuff, and those are very valid. But for me, the foundation is presence, and so can I bring myself back to this moment without thinking about what I'm going to do 3 hours from now?
Or without taking something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very important.
Well, thank you so much for.
That was- yeah.
I mean, that's one of our top, I would say. Seriously, like,
Ken with the blushing guy. Like, God, I can't hide it as well.
part
I've
of
only
it.
been here for a day. I need a couple more days to be able to hide it.
I think part of it is, you know, it's refreshing, you know, to hear, especially when it's well articulated, you know, and it was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys, and again, you've been so welcoming to me, and it's not just here at any event. It's always like you see the smiley face in the corner, despite how busy you are giving people facials or whatever, and you always say hi, and it does mean a lot when you're away. You guys know this too, right? When you're away from home,
Yeah.
just that there's sort of a potential lost connection, right? Because you're out of your element.
Right.
And it's people like you that allow us to reconnect, right? And for me, what I care about most about what we're doing in Home Hope in particular is community.
Yes.
And that kind of expands out in harmonics to the health community as well. And if there's ever anything I could do to support you guys, please let us know.
We appreciate
Thank you. Well, you can find Boomer on his Instagram, which is at BoomerSNH. Also, you can visit Troscriptions to talk about some of the cool things that we were talking about, the Buccal troches.
Yeah,
And if you,
Troscriptions.com.
yeah,
Yep.
and if you are a clinician and want to join the movement, Home Hope, even if you are a patient and you want to check out
get
this
educated.
get educated and come to the symposium, guys. Really, it was the best educational platform we have attended. So we are really we're gonna plan for October.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and take a look at their website too, homehope.org, as well as check out their podcasts. Like, amazing guests, and just the topics that they cover are extremely interesting. But that's the nerdy part of me. Smarter Not Harder podcast. This is when you get to really hear from the three guys. You know, from the what do they call it? The triad, if you will.
The Home Hope
You know,
pyramid,
the
yeah.
Home Hope
We call it
triad.
internally BTS.
No, I heard that.
Yeah.
And it is very
It
appropriate.
is really.
You guys are
Yeah.
new BTS.
Yeah, we're you know, I guess this may be because my wife is Korean, but it's we're sticking with BTS for now.
Yeah.
You guys need t-shirts.
Yeah,
For sure.
I think so.
Well, Boomer, thank you so much
Yeah.
again for joining us. This
you.
was absolutely such a pleasure.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, mahalo. Aloha.
Aloha.